By April 1945, the Third Reich was collapsing. For nearly 6 years, Nazi Germany had dominated much of Europe through rapid military victories and relentless expansion. But now, the situation had changed completely. The Allies were closing in from every direction. From the west, American, British, Canadian, and French forces had crossed the Rhine River and were advancing deep into Germany. From the east, the Soviet Red Army had pushed across Poland after months of brutal fighting, capturing one city after another as it moved toward the German capital. Between them stood Berlin. For Adolf Hitler, the city was more than a capital. It was the political heart of the Third Reich and the symbol of everything Nazi Germany had built since 1933. Losing Berlin would mean losing the war. Inside the city, preparations for its defense accelerated. Barricades appeared across major streets. Anti-tank obstacles blocked important intersections. Government buildings were transformed into strongpoints. Thousands of civilians helped dig trenches while engineers reinforced bridges and defensive positions. Yet beneath the appearance of determination, reality painted a very different picture. Germany faced severe shortages of fuel, ammunition, experienced soldiers, and armored vehicles. Entire military formations existed mostly on paper. Many of the city's defenders were elderly members of the Volkssturm, teenage recruits from the Hitler Youth, police units, and exhausted soldiers withdrawn from other collapsing fronts. They were preparing to face one of the largest armies ever assembled. On April 16, 1945, the final Soviet offensive began. More than 2 million Soviet troops, supported by thousands of tanks, artillery pieces and aircraft, launched a massive attack toward Berlin. The ground shook beneath. One of the most powerful artillery bombardments of the Second World War. The road to the German capital had opened. Within days, Soviet armored columns broke through defensive lines east of Berlin and advanced relentlessly toward the city. Air raid sirens echoed constantly. Columns of refugees crowded the roads. Smoke filled the horizon. Meanwhile, deep beneath the Reich Chancellery, Adolf Hitler remained inside the Führerbunker, continuing to issue military orders despite receiving increasingly desperate reports from the front. Outside, the battle was approaching. Street by street, building by building, Berlin was about to become the final battlefield of Nazi Germany. By April 23, 1945, the Battle of Berlin had entered its most brutal phase. Soviet forces had surrounded most of the city, cutting major roads and isolating the German capital from the rest of the collapsing Reich. Escape became increasingly difficult as artillery batteries closed in from every direction. Berlin was now under siege. The Red Army advanced through districts one block at a time, supported by tanks, engineers, and heavy artillery. Every street presented a new obstacle. Rubble from destroyed buildings blocked roads, forcing armored vehicles to move slowly through narrow avenues where defenders had prepared strong defensive positions. German troops resisted wherever they could. Barricades made from overturned trams, paving stones, and wrecked vehicles appeared throughout the city. Government buildings, railway stations, and apartment blocks were transformed into defensive strongpoints. Instead of fighting across open battlefields, soldiers now battled room by room. Each building became a separate battlefield. Civilians remained trapped inside basements as explosions echoed above them. Electricity and running water had largely disappeared, while food and medical supplies became increasingly scarce. The sound of artillery rarely stopped. Day and night, Berlin shook under one of the heaviest bombardments of the Second World War. Deep beneath the Reich Chancellery, Adolf Hitler continued meeting with senior officers inside the Führerbunker. Reports arriving from the front grew more desperate with each passing hour. Entire German units had been surrounded. Others no longer existed. Yet orders continued to be issued for counterattacks that could no longer change the outcome. Meanwhile, Soviet troops pushed steadily toward the government district. Among their objectives stood one building above all others, the Reichstag. Although it no longer served as Germany's parliament, it remained one of the most recognizable symbols of the Third Reich. Capturing it would send a powerful message that Berlin's defenses were collapsing. As Soviet formations closed in, resistance became increasingly fierce around the city center. Both sides understood that the battle had reached its final stage. The question was no longer whether Berlin would fall, but how many more lives would be lost before the fighting finally came to an end. By April 30th, 1945, Berlin had become a city in ruins. The Soviet Red Army had pushed into the very heart of the German capital, capturing one government building after another. Entire districts had been reduced to rubble after days of relentless fighting, and organized German resistance was beginning to collapse. The final objective stood before them, the Reichstag. Although it had not served as Germany's parliament for years, the building remained one of the most powerful symbols of the Nazi regime. Both sides understood its importance. Capturing it would demonstrate that the Third Reich had reached its end. Soviet infantry launched repeated assaults through shattered streets, crossing open ground under extremely difficult conditions before entering the heavily defended structure. Inside, fighting continued through smoke-filled corridors, staircases and damaged halls. After hours of fierce combat, Soviet soldiers secured the building. During the battle, several Red Army soldiers raised the Soviet flag above the Reichstag, creating one of the most iconic images of the Second World War. While different, flags were raised during the fighting. The famous photograph, taken afterward, became a lasting symbol of Nazi Germany's defeat. Meanwhile, beneath the Reich Chancellery, Adolf Hitler remained inside the Führer bunker. On April 30th, he died inside the bunker as Soviet forces closed in around the government district. His death marked the collapse of the Nazi leadership. The remaining German commanders faced an impossible reality. Berlin could no longer be defended. On May 2nd, 1945, General Helmuth Weidling, commander of Berlin's defenses, officially surrendered the city to the Soviet army. The fighting in Berlin was over. Only a few days later, on May 8th, 1945, Germany signed its unconditional surrender. In Europe, the Second World War had come to an end. The Battle of Berlin became one of the largest and most destructive urban battles ever fought. It marked the final collapse of the Third Reich and closed one of history's darkest chapters. The war would continue for several more months in the Pacific. But in the streets of Berlin, Nazi Germany had fought its last battle.